to do it, and they haven't signed up, so I'll be getting on them as well. Actually, I asked Shuka to do that in that email, so he'll be getting on them. Okay. Let's talk some strafing stuff here. Like I said, a lot of people think, well, shit, man, how much is there to strafing? A lot of you guys, though, if anybody who's been around for a while and done strafing in Falcon has hit the ground, or has had a hard time finding the target and hit the ground, or hit the ground before they even found the target. It's not just hitting the ground that's the problem, but what we're going to go over is a technique that will basically help you get on target and put rounds on target safely, no matter whether you're doing low angle or high angle strafe. And here I'll go down the list here. I got a whole bunch of notes written out for this lesson. I'll try to keep the talking at a minimum, and then we're going to go up and do it. Basically, we're in a situation where you're called on to strafe, like we might be in green flag. You need to have like a decision matrix that you go through. One of the first things is when do I strafe, and then what kind of strafing am I going to do? Most people don't even know there is multiple kinds of strafing. So when you're going in, think about the situation that you're in. What do the ground forces need, and what kind of ordnance is proper to employ is basically what it is. When you're in really close situations where the friendlies are very close to the enemy, you may not be able to employ CBUs or even 500-pound bombs because of the fear of fratricide, basically is what it is. So that pretty much narrows it down right there. When to strafe in that situation, yeah, you're strafing. You guys need weapons effects, and everything you've got is going to blow them up too, except for the gun. So we'll just kind of stick with that. We'll make that our example, basically. So we're going in. We're going to hit these targets that are very close to friendly troops. The other things you have to factor in is what kind of delivery method. Are you going to use high angle or low angle? Basically, your low angle strafe is better for point targets or for moving targets. It optimizes your accuracy and your lethality. Not so much in Falcon in real life, but in Falcon even it has a little bit of effect on lethality. It's because of the angle you're coming in at. High angle strafe is typically better for area targets, like if you're doing suppression on ground troops. If you got some ground troops down there and you just want to get their heads down or have weapons effects over a wide area, then you do the high angle strafe.
Thump, could you say it's kind of like a flashlight effect on the ground?
Yeah, that's part of it. You do get a flashlight effect, but typically your flashlight effect is going to be more coming in lower. And if you want to think about what Shuka's talking about, if you're holding the flashlight at a high angle, like if you hold it straight 90 degrees to the ground, you're going to have a little small circle. If you tilt the back of the flashlight down and you have it more at an angle, you'll see that the area that the light's on is going to increase. And that it does the same thing with bullets, even in Falcon. So you have to watch out for that too.
The type of scatter pattern we have in our weapon.
Exactly. And we got about a 6 mil dispersion. I'll get into that in a minute. Before you employ low angle or high angle strafe, after there's different things you got to think about as to which one you're going to use. One of the other things you have to think about when you're deciding which one you're going to do is the risk level. And that's not just risk level to you, it's risk level to who you're helping out, the ground troops. And that's what Green Flag is going to be focused on, helping out the ground troops. One example would be our friendly troops actively taking fire. Are they engaged? If they are, then you need to get in there and do your thing quickly. And depending on what the exact situation is, will be whether you use a high angle or a low angle strafe. Another example is your target, a high value fleeting target. In other words, is it maybe we're on a mission where we've got to take out a headquarters battalion vehicle, and it's right in the middle of a string of shit, and he takes off and starts running. That would be your high value fleeting target. So that can make a difference too. And we already talked about low angle strafe is more accurate. It's more for pinpoint precision and moving targets. And your high angle strafe is more for area effect. Now, having said that, both techniques are equally lethal against a wide variety of targets. It's just which one is better. Some other things you have to think about is what's the terrain like? You know, if you're in mountains, if we're down in the freaking cracks and crevices and there's mountains on each side, are you going to be able to use a low angle strafe? You're going to have to decide. You're going to have to see if it's going to work. In a lot of cases, probably not, so you're going to have to go with high angle strafe. I know all this sounds simple, but it's stuff you guys got to get used to thinking about, so we're not surprised by it when you're on a mission. And we're going to be doing this shit a lot in Green Flag.
Hey, Thump, quick question for you.
Okay.
When you say high and low angle, what differences are you talking about as far as, actual angle of attack there?
I'm fixing to get to that in just a second, brother.
Okay.
Going down the list. No, it's okay. That's cool. Other things you have to think, I'm just mentioning all this stuff. I'm doing this just like actually this is taken off of real training, what I'm going through right now. It's pretty much word for word. And a lot of it seems silly, but it's not so silly when you realize, when you put yourself on the ground, you're like, oh fuck, and you did it because one of these things we're talking about. The other thing you have to look for is environment. What's your environment like? And that just doesn't mean if it's raining or cloudy or whatever. You could have haze or smoke from secondaries. That's something we've actually worked on in the Panthers a few times, doing coordinated strikes. If our timing's off, then the smoke from a bombing run or whatever could obscure something that we've got to hit with a bomb or a gun or whatever. So when we talk environment, we're talking about that too. That can make your decision on whether to do a low angle or a high angle. It can make it for you, basically. Maybe you want to do a low angle, but there's lots of smoke and haze from other people hitting shit. And you're like, fuck, dude, I can't see shit. So you come back around, go in for a high angle, and you may get a better look on your target. I know this sounds simple, but if you start thinking like this, you'll have better success, I guess. Okay. I'm going to get into the actual tactic. This is known as the Universal Strafe Tactic. It's taught in the U.S. Air Force F-16 Weapons School. And they're hitting it hard and heavy right now because they had a couple of guys within the last few years put themselves in the ground. And a lot of it was because in the F-16 community, a lot of guys just aren't used to strafing. A-10s, yeah, 16s, no. And what's happening is, in real life, about 25% of their 911 calls, as they call them, calls from the ground troops saying, hey, we need some support, about 25% of those are requests for guns or situations where it's obvious that you need to use guns because the situation's too close. They've had some good examples on the History Channel over the past couple of years where they're telling real stories from Afghanistan and stuff. F-16s, F-15s putting gun rounds on a target because it's too close to be putting bombs, all that kind of stuff. So about 25% of the close air support situations they've been in have called for guns. So the guys are using them a lot more. Anyway, this technique was developed to cover a wide range of bullet types and all kinds of different situations, low angle and high angle strafe. So we're going to get down to the actual techniques. I'm going to tell you the degrees and all that kind of stuff. We'll start off with high angle strafe. And if you got a pen and pencil, you might want to jot some of this down. If you don't take notes, that's fine. We'll get you. We'll get you another time. All right, so high angle strafe is typically 15 to 30 degrees is what you're looking at. When we're talking the angles that you're at on your dive down, they call that the wire. So if I say, I'm setting up for a 20-degree wire, that's 20 degrees nose down is basically what it is. So again, high angle strafe is 15 to 30 degree pass. The safe escape from a high angle strafe during daylight hours is 500 AGL. That's your minimum safe recovery altitude. Basically what that saying is that if you initiate a pullout, you should be aiming to pull out above 500 feet. If you do that, you'll be okay. You won't hit the ground. Some of the keys to this is keep your airspeed up while you're low level. A lot of times they come in really low like we do on pop-ups. They're jinking, they're jiving. You want to keep your speed up. What that does is it gives you your max instantaneous turn rate for threat reaction, and it's going to minimize AOA effects when you're at higher G-forces doing your recovery. So if you're coming in low and then setting up for this pass, remember, keep your speed up. For the high angle strafe, you're going to want to, when you do pop up, or if you're not even having to do a pop up, do your target altitude for your base, setting your base at 6,000 feet AGL. So for high angle strafe, you want a 6,000 foot AGL. You're going to have the target offset from you by about 2.5 nautical miles. In the real jet, they've got a couple of visual cues they use. They'll put their hand with their thumb up along the canopy rail, or they'll do what's called the push it up kind of symbol with their fingers, which most of us would think of as like hang loose, where you got your pinky and your thumb extended and the other fingers down. They'll do that too, and they'll put that above their canopy rail, and that gives them a guesstimate for where they're at. Basically what it is you just put your thumb up, and you want your target that you're going for to be just above your thumb and off like 45 to 90 degrees. Now we can't do that in our jets. So what I've done is I've come up with a way that seems to work pretty good. And you can use the towel rack as a reference. The towel rack is the little handlebar looking thing along the side of your canopy rail. That's what they use to pull themselves around in the jet under high Gs and look around and all that kind of stuff. If you look at that in the jet and you take the length of it and then just imagine turning it up on its end and standing it up on the canopy rail, you want your target to be about the top of that. That's what you're looking for. So we're 6,000 feet, and we want to be offset from the target enough so that we've got that sight picture. Another way you can do it as a backup is just look and see if you're 2.5 nautical miles away from the target. That's not always all that accurate because of angles you may be at, but if you're straight 90 degrees or so, or 45 from the target, that should be about right. So either imagine that towel rack stood on end, or just look at your range. It should be 2.5 at 6,000 feet. Is there any questions on anything so far? Okay, when we roll in from this altitude, it should give you about 6 to 8 seconds of track time before you would be in range to fire. For us, it's going to be a little bit longer than that because our guns don't fire at the right ranges. We can't fire at 12,000 feet like they can. Normally, they don't even open fire at quite that range, but they do open fire at 6,000 feet, which I think you'll find in Falcon is still extremely difficult to hit anything or destroy it. I'm pretty much thinking the bullets don't even work at that range. They're supposed to, but they don't. So we may get a little bit longer of a track time. But that's about what you're looking at, 6 to 8 seconds. For us, maybe more like 10. When you roll in, basically what you want to do is put the target off, like I told you guys, off so it's above your canopy rail a certain distance, and you got your 2.5 mile offset. Keep on pressing either 90 to 45 degrees from the target. And when you see it go past the back of your towel rack, that's when you want to roll in. When you roll in, you're going to roll your aircraft and roll you're going to over-rotate, which means you're rolling more than 90 degrees, and put your lift vector right around where the target's at. Lift vector, just think of it as coming straight out the top of your head if you're sitting in the aircraft and looking straight forward. Lift vector straight up out the top of the canopy. So initially you're going to roll and put that lift vector on the target and then pull. Is there any questions on any of that so far?
Nope.
No, I'm good.
Okay. When you over-rotate, that's going to equal about 110, 120 degrees for you guys that are into this kind of stuff. So we're rolling, we're over-rotating, putting our lift vector on the target, pulling to put it right about on the target. As we're pulling in, it's going to be about a 3 to 4 G pull. We're going to aim to get the bore cross, not your air-to-ground reticle, which you should have pulled up. Not that, but your normal bore cross is always there all the time. You're going to aim to put that initially on the target. Once, after you've rotated and you're pulling that 3 to 4 G pull, once the target's in your HUD, relax stick pressure a little bit, unload a little bit, and roll out so you're around where the gun cross it was pointing for, basically. You're going to assess your slant range, your dive angle, and your airspeed. If your airspeed is above 415 calibrated, What you want to do is move your throttle to the halfway position, halfway in between full up and all the way to idle. They call it standing it up. So you want to stand your throttle up, have it pointing straight up and down if you're above 415. This is, believe it or not, this is all very important. If you're below 415, don't worry about it. You're going to be in buster. You're going to be in buster power. Before you even roll in, you want to be at buster. After you've done that and adjusted, and you've rolled in and it's in the HUD and you've adjusted for your throttle and all that if you need to, reset your aim point so that you bring the pipper onto the target. Track the target, open fire when you're in range. You want to cease fire no later than 3,000 feet slant range. Normally the real pilots are looking at ceasefire at 4,500 if they can, and make sure that they have a good safe escape. Remember, safe escape is about 500 feet, so that would get them well above 500 feet would be where they're pulling up. But you can press in as close as 3,000 feet or even a little closer. If at any time you see the brake X, the little X coming up in your HUD with the voice message saying that you're freaking going to hit the ground, immediately stop firing and pull out. For a safe escape, after you come off target and you cease fire, there's no set rule for how you do it. But in general, a good rule of thumb is to pull about 5 Gs in 2 seconds until you get your nose above the horizon. And then a good technique is to keep on pulling 20 to 30 degrees nose high so that if there's any small arms firing at you, you get up and out of range real quick. Now, I know that's a lot of shit, and we can go back over it in the game. But the goal is to get you guys able to see your target and to roll into it and to shoot it without